Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Today we are continuing our study of the summary of Srimad Bahagvatam. Today we'll be covering Canto 3, Chapter 13. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Today we are continuing. Yeah, and today's class will be facilitated by Her Grace Indulekha Karuna Mataji. Thank you so much, Mataji. Very happy to see you. You take over the class.
Hi, Krishna Mataji. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Preeti Vilasni Mataji, for giving this opportunity. I would also like to thank His Grace Sundaranand Prabhu for encouraging all of us to come forward and participate and prepare for this series. Mataji, if it's okay, we can get started.
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you so much. Okay. So today we will start with, we will be looking into the 13th chapter of Canto 3. Before that, let's start with the prayers. I hope you all can see my screen. The prayers are not going to be there on the screen, but yeah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Mancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatharine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayati girim yat kripatamaham vandem Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye nashtaprayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati neshtiki shinvatam swakata krishna punyashravana kirtana hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suratsata. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will start with a summary, a very brief summary of chapter 12. And this was the first creation by Brahma. So this included the creation of the Kumaras. The chapter was titled Creation of Kumaras and the Others. And it starts with how first Brahma creates ignorance, all the Ajnana Vrittis. And after that, from Brahma, he was very ashamed of this and he did not like it. So then again, after meditating, he then created the 4 Kumaras, who are the 4 aspects of knowledge. And when the 4 Kumaras refused to give rise to further progeny and continue the creation process, the anger that Brahma suppressed led to the birth of Rudra. And after this, there were several manifestations that appeared from the various parts of Lord Brahma and from his mind also, such as the various sages that appeared, Narada Muni, the various Prajapatis. So all of them manifested. And then the chapter takes a slight deviation, talks about how Brahma was distracted by his inclination for his daughter, Vak. And after that, again, it continues with the further creations from Brahma. So how he did the creations of the 4 Vedas, how the 4 Vedas appeared from him, the Upavedas, the alphabets, the Vedic meters, the 4 legs of Dharma, and etc., etc. So many things appeared from Lord Brahma. Okay. And finally, from Brahma appeared Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. Now, once they appeared from Lord Brahma's body, what happened is continued in chapter 13. So, in the chapter is known as the appearance of Lord Varaha. So it is divided into a few sections. First, it starts with the inquiries by Vidura about Swayambhuva Manu. Okay, so you'll see why he was so keen to know about Swayambhuva Manu. And then it talks about, Maitreya Muni. So we should remember this is Vidura Maitreya Samvad. So Vidura is asking questions to Maitreya Muni, and Maitreya Muni is describing the various pastimes, the various incidents, and the philosophy. So that's what's happening at this time. So Maitreya Muni talks about how Brahma instructs Manu in verses 6 to 15. This is followed by the pastime of Shweta Varaha and the pastime of Nila Varaha. We'll get to know why that is described in this chapter. And then the prayers by various sages in texts 34 through 45, and how the Lord returns back to his own abode, and we'll have the Falastuti. There are a total of 50 verses in this chapter, and this is how the verses are split. So we will start with how Vidura was inquiring from Maitreya about Swayambhuva Manu. We'll start with the verse. The very first verse is Shri Shuka Vacha Nishamya Vacham Vadato Muni Punyatamam Ripa Bhuya Prapacha Kauravyo Vasudeva Kathadhrita. So the translation is that Sri Shukadev Goswami said, "O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, Vidura inquired further on the topic of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear." So we see here that Vidura, he is inquiring further because he is more and more eager to hear about the topics of the Lord. And so Vidura is known by the name Vasudeva Kathadrita. So because it shows how much he is naturally inclined to hear the transcendental message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he was never fully satisfied, even though he just wanted to continue hearing the topics of the Supreme Lord. So that is why he is known as Vasudeva Kathadrita. Okay. And so Vidura then said, "Oh, great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after he obtained his very loving wife?" So the Srimad Bahagvatam, it is full of the transcendental topics of the glories of the Lord and his pure devotees. So, in the absolute world, we should understand that there's no difference in the qualities of the Lord and his pure devotees. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing the characters and activities of his pure devotees have the same result. What is that result? It helps us in developing our devotional attitude, our devotional service. It helps us in further strengthening our devotional progress. So he said, I am eager to hear with faith. He says, Shraddha Dhanaya, about that original and saintly. Excuse me a moment. Sorry. About that original and saintly king. He says he is Rajarshir Adi Rajasya. He calls Manu such. Okay. Why? He's saying, I'm so eager to hear with faith about this original and saintly king because he has taken shelter of the Lord. He has taken shelter of Vishwasena, Shreyo. He's taken shelter of Vishwasena. Okay. And then, so what happens? What does he say? He wants to further, explain to Maitreya why he is so very eager to hear about Swayambhuva Manu. So he says, this is verse 4. Shrutasya pumsam shuchira shramasya nanvanjasa suribhir idito rartha Tattad gunanushravanam mukunda padaravindam hridayeshu yesham. So, persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouth of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. The pure devotees, they always think within their heart of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who awards his devotees liberation. So he's Mukunda, he's giving them liberation. So what Vidura is trying to say is that the greatest goal of hearing from the spiritual master is to hear about such pure devotees. Why? Because they always think within their heart, they think of the lotus feet of the Lord. He is Mukunda. He is the one who awards his devotees liberation. So this personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Sahasra Shisha, Sri Shukadev Goswami says, the Sri Krishna, he was so pleased with Vidura that when Lord went to Vidura's home, what did he do? He placed his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. Because of Vidura's humility, because he was so meek, he was so gentle in his behavior, the Lord was so pleased, Krishna was so pleased with him, that while he was resting, he placed his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. That is how blessed Vidura was. And thinking about this, the sage Maitreya, he was also pleased hearing the words of Vidura, and because of this spirit of Vidura, because of his such inquisitive inquiries, his such eagerness to hear Harikatha, Maitreya Muni decides that he will also speak and try to narrate the pastimes that Vidura is asking about. So this gets us into the conversation between Brahma and Manu. This is from text 6 through 15. So Maitreya Muni says that after he appeared, Manu addressed Brahma. He was so respectful to Brahma, and he addressed him. He said, you are the father of all the living entities, and you are the source of their subsistence, just because they are all born of you. So please tell us, please order us, how can we render service unto you within our capacity? And by rendering service unto you, what will happen to us? It will give us fame in this life, and it will give us a superior destination in the next life. So this is what Manu is asking Brahma. He wants Brahma to instruct him as to what Manu should do, what is the service that is going to please Brahma. Why does he want to please Brahma? It is because Brahma, he is the direct recipient of all this Vedic knowledge from the Supreme Lord, right? So anyone who is entrusted with this duty, he and is in the disciplic succession from Brahma, they are sure to gain fame in this life and salvation in next. This is what Srila Prabhupada is writing. So he says that the disciplic succession from Lord Brahma is called the Brahma Sampradaya. Okay, so we have Swayambhuva Manu. Here he is also a direct descendant of Brahma, and he is also seeking instructions from Brahma. So Brahma, he was so happy to hear this. And he says, "Oh, my son, my dear son, I am so pleased with you. And I desire all blessings for both you and your wife." And he says that you have, without reservation, you have surrendered yourself unto me within your heart, with all your heart, because you are now waiting for my instruction. So, although Brahma is the father and Swayambhuva Manu is the son, see how their relationship is so sweet. So the father naturally would want all good for their own child, right? And so he's always ready to help the son. He wants his son to also progress in life. But what happens? Sometimes, because of our own misuse of personal independence, sometimes we may be misguided. So that independence, that free will is guaranteed and given to everybody, every living entity, whether we are big or small. We all have that free will. Okay, so if the son, he willingly decides to be guided by the father, then the father, he is 10 times more eager. We see this about in Krishna's case also, right? If we take one step towards Krishna, then Krishna will take 10 steps towards us. So here also, it is the same. The son, if he wants to be guided by the father, then the father is also 10 times more eager to instruct and guide him. So here Manu is asking Brahma, please instruct me. And so Brahma, who is full of Vedic knowledge, he has all the wisdom. He has directly been given this wisdom by the Supreme Lord. And he was so happy to instruct Manu. So one who is beyond the limit of envy and who is sane accepts the order of his father with great delight, and he executes it to his full capacity. So this is mentioned by Srila Prabhupada in the puppet. So Brahma, we know that in the previous chapter, the incident of the four sons of Brahma is mentioned. Who are they? The four Kumaras: Sanaka, Sananda, Sanatana, and Sanat Kumara. What did they do? They did not obey their father's instruction. Brahma asked them to do something. They did not offer to, they did not seek advice from Brahma, or they did not offer to help Brahma in the creation process. Brahma himself, he ordered them, okay, please do this, please help in the creation process, and they refused it. So because of that, Brahma has a past experience where his children did not obey him. At that time, Brahma was so angry, and from that anger, we see how Rudra appeared. So Brahma did not forget this incident. So he was so very pleased. He was so encouraged by the words of Swayambhuva Manu. Okay, but now we should understand that the four sages, they were disobedient for a higher purpose. Okay, their goal was different. Their goal was definitely to meditate on the Lord's lotus feet. So that time, because they had a higher purpose, they were free from the reactions of being disobedient. But like what Mataji had explained last time, we should not follow that for our own mundane, mundane whims and fancies, and for our own mundane pleasure, we should not disobey or disrespect our elders. Okay, because there is a reaction to it. So now, when Swayambhuva Manu asked so willingly to Brahma, he decided to give Swayambhuva Manu the instructions. So he gave him 3 particular instructions. What are they? First, he said, you have to beget children who are qualified just like you are. And second, he said, you have to rule the world in pursuance of the principles of devotional service. And third, he says you have to worship the Lord by performing yajna. You have to perform sacrifices. And why do we perform sacrifices? He says you have to perform sacrifice in order to please the Lord. And that's how in that day and age, they perform yajnas to worship the Lord. Even now we perform yajna to worship the Lord. In this age, the performance of Sankirtan yajna is the highest dharma, right? And that's how we can please the Lord. So ultimately, the worship of Lord Vishnu is the goal of human life. And so that's why Brahma made sure that he put that as one of the main instructions for Swayambhuva Manu. Okay, so we must make sure when we are stepping into grihastha ashram, when we are stepping into married life, we must also take the responsibility to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is our first stepping stone in this varnashram dharma system. Okay, so that's what we have to practice. But they're saying that if one directly wants to engage in the process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is not necessary to undergo all the disciplinary systems in the Varnashram Dharma. So, like how the Kumaras, they directly engaged in devotional service. Because of that, they did not have to get into they did not have to execute all the principles of Varnashram Dharma. They did not have to follow, get into a grihastha ashram in their life, because they are already practicing devotional service. So he said, and by thus protecting the population, you are going to do the highest service unto me, and the Lord is also going to be very, very pleased. So this entire administrative system, it is for only one purpose. It is arranged so that we all can go back home, back to Krishna. Okay, so Brahma is the representative of the Lord, Manu is the representative of Brahma, and so should every ruler, every king. It is their responsibility in administration that they not just extract all the taxes from the citizens, but they need to make sure that they look after the personal well-being of the citizens, so that they all can be very well trained in worshipping the Supreme Lord. And everyone should be given this education, right? We don't see that in our system anymore, but this is the ideal rule. This is the ideal responsibility of every king. Okay, we are not meant to satisfy our own material senses. We are meant to satisfy the senses of Rishikesha. He is the Supreme Lord, right? So once we know the secret, as it is disclosed here by Brahma, then we would also learn to become the perfect administrative heads. So here there is a pause, and we look into why we have to please the Supreme Lord. So let's just quickly look at the 3 instructions that Brahma gives. He says you should have children who are as qualified as yourself. You have to rule the world according to the principles of devotional service. And you have to worship the Lord by performing yajna. So why do we need to please the Lord? Right? The Supreme Lord, he is Janardana. He is the Lord who takes care of all the living beings. He is satisfied by the process of devotional service. Now we know this ninefold process of devotional service where we hear, chant, we remember the Lord. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Vandanam, all of those 9 processes, that is uh, that is taught to us so that we can practice devotional service, and that pleases the Lord. It is why should we please him? Because the Lord is here. He is here to accept all the results of our sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then what happens is we are simply laboring, we are simply working for nothing. All our energy is just being utilized for something in vain. We are not going to advance. So only if the Lord is pleased would the Lord help us in also progressing. Okay. Um, Everyone wants to try and satisfy our own senses, right? But above our senses is the mind. And above the mind is the intelligence. And above the intelligence is the individual self. And above our individual self is the super self. And above the super self is the supreme personality of Godhead, who is Vishnu Tattva. So this primeval Lord, he is the cause of all causes, and that is Lord Krishna. So only when we render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna would the Lord be pleased. Okay. And that's why the Lord is also known as Janardana. Okay. So Manu says, okay, I will abide by your orders. The earth, and he looks around and he's wondering, where should I start following the instructions of my father? And he says, see, the earth, it's now merged in the Garbhodaka ocean. So can you please retrieve it? So saying this, Brahma is also now worried about what is going to happen. How is he going to retrieve the earth? So at this point, in the purport, it is mentioned that according to Jiva Goswami, here the topic we are going to discuss, according to Jiva Goswami, Maitreya Muni, in this particular conversation with Vidura, he is talking about, he has mixed together 2 different Varaha avatars. He is going to talk about the Varaha, Shweta Varaha avatar that appeared in the Swayambhuva Manvantara, and he appeared from the nostril of Brahma. Why did he appear? He appeared to lift the earth from the Garbhodaka ocean. Okay, so this is the pastime that Maitreya Muni is explaining and narrating to Vidura. But along with this, Maitreya Muni also combines the pastime of Neelavaraha, who is bluish like a cloud, and who appears from the water in the Chakshusha Manvantara. Okay, that is in the 6th Manvantara. So we are right now in the very first Manvantara, the Swayambhuva Manvantara. So right when Maitreya Muni explains, he combines both the Shweta Varaha and the Neela Varaha avatars. Okay, so he talks about how this Neela Varaha avatar also appeared. And why did this Neela Varaha avatar appear? He appeared to lift the earth, and at the same time he had to kill Hiranyaksha. So that is Jiva Goswami's explanation of how Maitreya Muni explains this section or narrates this pastime to Vidura. So we look at the pastime of Shweta Varaha in the Swayambhuva Manvantara in verses 16 to 30. Okay, so that's where it's mentioned. So Brahma, when Swayambhuva Manu asks him to help retrieve the earth from the Garbhodaka ocean, Brahma starts to contemplate, how am I going to do this? The earth, while Brahma was busy in the process of creation. So he did not realize that the earth has been inundated. There was a big flood that happened. And so it has gone down into the ocean. So is there anything I can do? What can I do about it? And then he realized, only the Almighty Lord can direct us. So, this shows how a devotee reacts in situations. So, if something is beyond uh, our capabilities, the devotees who are very confidential servants of the Lord, what do? They may be perplexed, but they are never discouraged. Srila Prabhupada writes this very emphatic statement that sometimes they may be perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and the Lord paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. So while Brahma was engaged in thinking like this, a small, tiny form of a boar that was just the size of the upper portion of the thumb, that was how tiny the boar was. He came out of Brahma's nostril, and within a moment, he grew into a gigantic form in the sky and started roaring. So he was so huge, and he became like a great elephant. That huge he became. Brahma, he was so wonderstruck. And Brahma, along with all the great sages like Marichi, Kumaras, all the Manu, as well as Manu, they all began to argue about who this boar could be. So Brahma said, my mind is perturbed. Is this some divine being? Is it the Supreme Lord Yajna? So who is the Supreme Lord Yajna? In the Manvantara avatar of Swayambhuva Manu, the Manvantara avatar of Swayambhuva Manu is Yajna. Okay, so Brahma, he thought, okay, Brahma has the most experience of all of them, right? And he is the supermost person in this universe. So he thought, I have never seen such a wonderful form. And so he guessed this appearance of the boar also has to be an incarnation of Lord Vishnu, because he saw that there were uncommon features that show the characteristics of the incarnation of Godhead. So sometimes those can even bewilder the mind of Brahma. See, we see how he was also perplexed when this form of the Lord appeared. In order to enliven them, the Lord then, he started roaring. He gave a very tumultuous roar like a great mountain, and that echoed in all the directions. Now, let's see what happened when the Lord roared. All of the sages from Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, all of them, they heard the sound of this all merciful form of the Lord, and they understood that this is the Supreme Lord. So what did they do? They immediately started chanting the mantras from the three Vedas. Okay, so all of these, the Satyaloka, the Tapaloka, the Janaloka, all of these planets, they all have the most intellectual and pious living entities there. So they all had the power to understand that this is the Supreme Lord. This could not be anybody else. So hearing the chanting of all the mantras, he understood that the Lord understood that they were praising him. They were praising the Lord and his qualities. And so he entered the waters like an elephant. It says, oh yeah, he was like Gajendra Leela. The Lord, he has no material form. His form is always understood to be in terms of the Vedas. So the Vedas are said to be the breath of the Lord. Okay, and that breath was inhaled by Brahma. Brahma is the original student of the Vedas. Now, from the breathing or from the nostrils of Brahma appeared the boar form of the Lord, the Varaha in avatar. And so this incarnation of the Lord is the personified Vedas itself. Why? Because the Vedas are said to appear from the said to be the breath of the Lord, right? So this breath is inhaled by Brahma, and when Brahma exhaled, Brahma is the student of the Vedas, right? And when Brahma exhaled, that's when this boar appeared. So he is known as the personified Vedas itself. So then this boar, what did he do? He flew into his sky, and with his tail slashing and his hard hair quivering, his glance was luminous. So he scattered all the clouds with his hoofs and his white tusks. Oh, here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes the composition by Jayadev Goswami. He has sung about the glories of Lord Varaha as Vasati Dashana Shikhare Dharani Tavalagna Shashini Kalanka Kaleva Nimagna Keshavadrita Shukara Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare. So, Jayadev Goswami, he glorifies the Varaha avatar of the Lord. How does he say, what does he say? He says, all glories to Lord Keshava, who appeared as the boar. The earth was held between his tusks, which appeared like the scars on the moon. So, this Lord, Varahadev, he was the Supreme Lord Vishnu, and so he was transcendental. So we need to understand that whatever form the Lord takes, it is definitely not material. All the forms that the Lord appear, although he may take the form of a boar or a hog or any animal, it doesn't matter. These are all transcendental forms of the Lord. Okay. So, because he appeared in the form of a boar, what did he have to do? He has to search for Mother Earth. How did he search for Mother Earth? Because he's a boar, he searched by the sense of smell. So he went after the smell of Mother Earth. So all the Brahmanas, they continued offering prayers to the Lord. And the Lord, he then entered the waters. So whatever part the Lord plays, so if the Lord is in the role of a boar here, he is able to play that role so perfectly. Because he's in the form of a boar, he made sure that he uses what senses are most used by that animal, or most strongest in that animal, to search for Mother Earth. So all the devotees were actually very, very pleased to see this form of the Lord. Although to the non-devotee it may appear that this form looks very fearful, the pure devotees were not at all afraid. And so the Lord was also so pleased by his devotees. And so he glanced at them. And when he did that, all of them felt a wave of transcendental happiness. After this, the Lord just dived into the ocean. He divided the middle of the ocean into two high waves, and those waves appeared like arms of the oceans that cried loud to the Lord. He was praying, "Oh Lord of sacrifices, please don't cut me into two. Please protect me." So the Lord, like this, he cut the waters with his hoofs, and he found the limit of the limitless ocean. And there he saw the earth, and he personally lifted the earth. Okay, so the Lord found the earth in the bottom of the Garbhodakashayi ocean. It says that it's the unlimited ocean. Yet, because he is the Lord, all of his pastimes are achintya. It's completely inconceivable. We can never fathom how the Lord is able to execute such wonderful pastimes. And so he found the earth, and he saw that it is in the bottom of the Garbhodaka ocean. So that's where all the planets rest during the devastation at the end of Brahma's day. Okay, so saying this much, now Maitreya Muni is going to talk about how the Lord arose with the earth. Okay, so this is where he combines both the Shweta Varaha and the Nila Varaha in the two different Manvantaras. And so we will look at this pastime of the Nila Varaha in Chakshusha Manvantara, and this is from text 31 through 33. Okay, so the Lord, he appeared with the earth on his tusks, and then immediately he was so angry. Anger, like the Sudarshan Chakra, he killed Hiranyaksha like a lion kills an elephant. Okay, so as we discussed, these are the two different incarnations of the Lord. Hiranyaksha pastime does not appear in the Swayambhuva Manu. We need to be very, very clear about that. Why? Because Hiranyaksha is the son of Diti. Now, Diti comes as the daughter of Daksha, who appears in the Chakshusha Manvantara. Okay, right now in the last chapter, we talked about the Daksha, who is one of the Prajapatis, but that Daksha, he appears again in the Chakshusha Manvantara, and his daughter one of his daughters is Diti, and she is the mother of Hiranyaksha. So that's why we are able to say so clearly that we are talking about two separate pastimes. Okay, so this Varahadev is called the Nila Varaha. Oh, the cheeks and the tongue of the Lord, it became smeared with the blood of the demon, just as an elephant becomes reddish by digging purple earth. So then the Lord, he played like an elephant, suspended the earth on the edge of his tusks, and he assumed a bluish complexion like that of the tamal tree. And so the sages headed by Brahma, they could understand that this is the Supreme Lord, and they offered their obeisances unto the Lord. So from here on, we are going to look at how the sages glorified the Lord. There are so many prayers by the sages. It is covered in the section from 34 through 45. So very quickly, a very condensed version of it is mentioned in this table and also on the next page. So we'll just quickly look at the prayers. So they start with all glories to the unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices. They say that your form is worshipable by performing sacrifice. All the hymns, the Gayatris, and all the others are like the touch of your skin. In your bodily hair is the kusa grass. In your eyes is the clarified butter. And in your four legs are the four kinds of fruitive activities. So that's why that's what's mentioned here in the table. And then he says that the Lord bore skin, his eyes, his bodily hair, holes, all are described as the different parts of the Vedas. And so his body itself is, the personification of the Vedic hymns, specifically the Gayatri Mantra. And then they talk about how the tongue is a plate of sacrifice. So it's a sacrificial ladle. The nostril is the ghee ladle. The belly is the Ida vessel. It's the eating plate of sacrifice. And then the ears are another plate of sacrifice. In the mouth is the Brahma plate of sacrifice. So like that, they talk about each and every portion of the Lord as different aspects of sacrifices. So by regulation, we understand that there are different plates of sacrifice that are required. Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that these are called Shrak, Shruva, Barhis, Chaturhotra, Ida, Chamasa, Prasrita, Graha, and Agnihotra. So one cannot achieve the results of sacrifice unless they observe the strict regulations. So these are the different aspects of it. So in this age, there is no facility to perform sacrifices in such a strict manner. So in the age of Kali, we have to, there is a stricture regarding the sacrifice. It is very clearly mentioned that one should perform Sankirtan Yajna, that is the sacrifice for this Kali Yuga and nothing else. The incarnation of the Supreme Lord is Yagneshwara. So when we take shelter of the Lord and when we render service unto him, it is equivalent to the performance of all sacrifices. Okay, so again, the sages were continuing their glorification. They're saying that the repetition of your appearance is the desire of all kinds of initiation. Your neck is the place for all three desires. What are the three desires? For relationship, activity, and the desire for the ultimate goal of life. And your tusk is the result of initiation, and it is the end of all desires. They say that your tongue is the prior activities of initiation. Your head is the fire without sacrifice, as well as the fire of worship. And your living force are the aggregate of all desires. So, like this, they continue to glorify the Lord. And they talk about how the different parts are again the various sacrifices. So there are 7 kinds of routine yajnas that are performed by the followers of Vedic rituals. So they are called the Agnistoma, the Atyagnistoma, Ukta, Sodisha, Vajapeya, Atirata, and up Aptoryama. So I have not read much on any of this, and I don't have much information on them. But if you're interested, we can. As far as we are concerned, the one yajna that we need to perform for Kali Yuga is the Sankirtan yajna, and that is what we have to be focused on. Okay, so just by and Srila Prabhupada repeatedly mentions this in the purports that if we are in contact with the Supreme Lord, just by discharging devotional service, it should be understood that we have performed all the varieties of yajna. So this Srila Prabhupada is very clearly stating repeatedly in the purports in this chapter. So following that, we will continue and they continue their offering of prayers, and they say that you are the object of all the sacrifices. You are bound by devotion expressed in the sacrifice. But miscreants can't see this form of sacrifice. And then they pay obeisances to the Lord. And they say obeisance to you who are worshipable by the universal prayers, worshipable by Vedic hymns, and all the sacrificial ingredients. You are the supreme form of all sacrifices. You are realized by one who conquers the mind by bhakti with detachment. And you are the supreme spiritual master of knowledge in bhakti. So they say that with the earth on your tusk, you appear like an elephant holding a lotus flower with its trunk. And again, they compare the beautiful form of the Lord as a equivalent to a huge mountain that is decorated with a cloud. So the sages, they say that you and your wife, the earth in whom you have invested your potency, are our father and mother. So we offer our respectful obeisances to you along with Mother Earth. And you have invested all your potency, just as an expert sacrificer puts fire in the arani wood. So the purports again very beautifully, Srila Prabhupada said that the law of gravitation which sustains the planets is described here as the potency of the Lord. So this potency is invested by the Lord in a way that just like how an expert sacrificial brahmana, he puts fire in the irony wood by the potency of Vedic mantra. So in the same way, the Lord is able to invest that potency in sustaining the planets in their position. So by this arrangement of the Lord, this whole world becomes habitable for all the various living entities here. So the conditioned souls that reside in this material world, how are we put in here? We are put into the womb of Mother Earth in the same way the seed of a child is put in by the father in the womb of the mother. Okay, how the Lord explains that in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 4. Sarvayonishu kaunteya murteyat sambhavantiya tasam brahma satam mahadyonir aham bija pradapita. So it should be understood that all species of life, O son of Kunti, are made possible by birth in this material world. And I am the seed giving father. I am aham bija pradapita. So no one else could deliver the earth because he is the father. Obviously, he is the only one who would be able to protect the earth at that point. So they are saying that it is not very astonishing for you. The sages are continuing that it's not astonishing for you who created this wonderful universe with your Maya. They say we have been purified by the auspicious drops of water that came from your shaking body. So when the Lord came out from the waters, his body, he just shook the hairs on his body, and with that, all those water droplets, it purified all the inhabitants of the Jana, Tapa, and the Satyalokas. So I say they have been purified by that, and your wonderful activities are unlimited. So they say, please, they are asking for a benediction. Let's see whom they are asking it for. They say, please bestow good fortune on all the conditioned souls. They're so bewildered by your powerful Maya. So it says Vishwam Samastam. That's whom they are asking for. It includes both the material and the spiritual worlds, because the sages are praying that both the worlds are bewildered by your different energies. In the spiritual world, they are also absorbed in your loving service, and so they forget themselves and you also. And in the material world, because we are so busy absorbed in all our sense gratificatory activities, so we forget you here also. So no one is able to know you because you are unlimited. So it's best not to try to know you by unnecessary speculation. So rather, you kindly bless us so that we can all worship you with costless devotional service. This is the prayer of the sages. So now the Lord, he is going to return back. He's completed his task, his mission, and so he decides to return back to his abode. And we are concluding the chapter from text 46 to 50. We talk about the Falastuti also. So the Lord, he touched the earth with his hoofs, he placed it on the water, and he returned to his own abode. And the personality of Godhead, he always decides, when he decides to descend, he descends by his own will to this material planet in all his various incarnations. And when he decides, he will also go back to his own abode. So because he descends, he is known as Avatara. Avatara is one who descends. So neither the Lord himself nor his specific devotees who come to this earth are ordinary living beings like us. We need to be well aware of that. So the falastuti of this is that if one hears and describes in a devotional service attitude this auspicious narration of Varahadeva, that is worthy of description, the Lord, who is within the heart of everyone, is extremely pleased. So in his various incarnations that the Lord appears, he acts and leaves behind him a narrative history, and that is transcendental, just like the Lord. So everyone is very fond of hearing wonderful narrations, but not all of those stories are auspicious, and neither are they worth hearing, because they are of the inferior quality. Why? That is the quality of material nature. Okay. Every living entity is of a superior quality. Why? Because we are all spirit souls, and nothing material can be auspicious for us. So, intelligent people should hear personally and cause others to also hear the descriptive narrations of the Lord's activity. Only by narrating the Lord's activity would we be able to destroy the miseries, the pangs of material miseries in this existence. So, out of the Lord's causeless mercy, he descends to this earth and he leaves behind his merciful activities, so that all these devotees, they can derive transcendental benefit. No blessing is unobtainable when the Lord is pleased with someone. He gives his own abode to his unalloyed devotee. This is the falastuti of this chapter. So we all would want to go back to the Lord's supreme abode, and that is the blessing that the Lord gives us here. Okay, so a pure devotee who's constantly engaged in loving service of the Lord is awarded with all the knowledge to go back to the Supreme Lord. And for such a devotee, there is nothing more valuable to be achieved than the Lord's service. So if we serve faithfully, there is no possibility of being frustrated, because the Lord, he himself will take charge of the devotee's advancement. So he is seated in everyone's heart. He knows what our motives are, and so he arranges things accordingly. So if we are anxious to achieve something material, and for that we are trying to be a devotee and trying to please the Lord, we won't be able to attain the highest perfectional stage. Because why? The Lord is within us. He knows exactly, he can see us inside out. So once we are sincere, once we have decided that this is all we need, we only want to serve the Lord, then the Lord, he is going to personally come and help us in every possible way. Okay. So the chapter ends with couple questions. Who other than one who is not a human being can exist in this world and not be interested in the ultimate goal of life? Who can refuse the nectar of narrations about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which by itself can deliver one from the all material pangs? So the activities of the Lord is like, and the narration of such activities is like a constant flow of nectar. So we cannot escape or refuse drinking such nectar unless we are not a human being. That is what is mentioned here. So devotional service to the Lord, it is the highest goal of life for every single living being. And such devotional service, it begins with Shravanam, right? So it starts with hearing about what? About the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So there are many stories and narrations and many books of such stories and histories in this world, but anything other than the narrations of the personality of the topics of the Lord and his devotees, in everything other than the narration of the topics of the Lord and his devotees are incapable of reducing our burden. So when one is serious about being done with our material existence, then we must learn to chant and hear about the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. So with this, the chapter ends, and we'll quickly look at a short, very, very brief summary. In the beginning, we started with the inquiries of Vidura. He was asking about Swayambhuva Manu and his activities. So why did he ask about Swayambhuva Manu? Because Swayambhuva Manu is a very, very dear devotee of the Lord. We know that he is one of the 12 Mahajanas. And so then from verses 6 through 15, it is describes Maitreya Muni describes a conversation between Brahma and Manu. At that time, what happens? The Mother Earth was submerged in the Garbhodaka ocean. And so this led to the pastime of the Shweta Varaha avatar. And that was covered in verses 16 through 30, and from verses 31 to 33, we're talking about the Neela Varaha avatar, who also lifted the earth from the Garbhodaka ocean, and simultaneously he killed the Hiranyaksha demon. And from verses 34 to 45 are the prayers by the sages, a glorification of the Lord, and how they ultimately seek a benediction for all the conditioned souls in this world. And from 46 to 50, it covers how the Lord returned back to his abode and what is the benefit that we can gain by narrating these pastimes, by hearing this transcendental pastime of the Supreme Lord. So thank you all so much for joining us today and for your patient hearing. Please forgive me for any mistakes that I have committed here, or I have in my explanation. I mostly try to only go through the purports of Srila Prabhupada and follow the Subodhini. So if there are any realizations, reflections, any comments, any questions, we can take them now. Thank you so much, dear devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. It was a very, very interesting class. First of all, it was interesting to know that when the demigods were thinking, oh, who's this person? And they were thinking, oh, is this Yajna? They actually meant the Indra Yajna of that time. I didn't even connect any of those earlier, but you made it sound, I mean, you just made it so simple. So
yeah, I was not clear why they thought that it was Yajna, because I mean, if we read further, then Yajna comes from Swayambhuva Manu's like daughter, right? So I was also not clear how they talked about the Manvantara avatar then.
so which means then, oh, really? Okay, yeah, I didn't think through it.
Akuti is,
Yeah, but then that comes later in one sense.
Yeah.
And shouldn't it be that they were thinking that this Varaha is Yajna personified? Is that what it is?
Yeah, first they were thinking, is this Yajna? Is this a supreme personality, Yajna? That's what they thought. So, yeah. So,
he's called as Yajna Varaha and Rakta Varaha because he's Yajna personified, is it?
oh, I don't know that, Mataji.
He's also called as Rakta Varaha.
Yeah, I've heard that Rakta Varaha. Over here, they talk about Shweta Varaha and Neela Varaha. And they don't mention the names of Rakta Varaha here or Yajna Varaha. I have to see. In the translation, it was not mentioned, but I'll have to look in the text itself.
Let me also see here. Yeah, but it was very interesting, Mataji. Thank you so much. And
you know so much, and yet you always find something new. So you are attentive hearing.
Narrated the pastime. So it was very, very beautiful, Mataji. Very nice. The prayers were also so beautiful. So thank you so much, Mataji.
Much Mataji, Dandavad Pranam, Hare Krishna.
So this is 313, right?
313, yes.
Okay. Interesting. Hari Bol. Yeah, anyone else has any? The other thing that I like is about the smell, right? So Varaha goes by smell. So by the uh, sense of smell, he was trying to find the earth, right? So, and he also comes out from the nose of Brahma. Okay. And the earth, the quality of earth is smell.
Smell. Yes.
So
One.
now we have three connections. He
They were
comes from the nose. He uses the sense of
sense
smell,
of smell.
because Varaha, the boar, it actually goes through by the sense of smell. And then the earth is also the feature of the earth is the smell.
Is smell. Yes. Wonderful, Mataji.
Yeah, Harita Mataji, you want to ask anything?
Mataji,
Go ahead, Mataji.
yes, I was just saying that continuously in their prayers, they compare the Lord to the various sacrifices, right? So they compare the different limbs of the Lord to the various sacrifices. So I don't know if that's the reason why you said he is Yajna Varaha.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just trying to find that word, meaning like I had read him as Yajna Varaha, but I will.
I didn't see that yet. Yeah.
I'm also trying to find out that.
Mataji, please check. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Harita Mataji. So sorry
Yeah.
for interrupting you.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. That was very nice session, Mataji. Got to know very many new things. Mataji, so the Varahas, it is Shweta Varaha in Chakshashimano,
Shweta Varaha in Swayambhuva Manvantara.
Swayambhuva Manvantara. And
First one.
Chakshashu is like Neela Varaha.
Yes.
Neela Varaha is finding only the earth, and Shweta Varaha is finding earth and killing Hiranyaksha.
No, in Chakshusha Manvantara only Hiranyaksha's appearance comes.
Okay.
So Neela Varaha is the one who appears in Chakshusha Manvantara, and he also kills Hiranyaksha. So he kills Hiranyaksha and he also lifts the earth.
Okay. And one more question is, Mataji, like we see that various sons of Brahma, they come out from different, like from his mind, from his heart. So from where did Manu come from, Mataji?
He came from his body. I'll just 1 second. Let me just quickly go back to this next, the previous chapter. It was right there at the very end. Yeah. Two other forms were generated from
Left and right.
his body. They are celebrated as the body of Brahma.
Okay. From the body as a whole.
Yeah,
Okay.
so they don't say which part specifically, just says body of Brahma. Yeah.
Does it?
Okay.
Oh, I thought it's supposed to be left and right, right? No.
1 sec, Mataji. I'll just share this.
And also I want to know like Shiva also, Mataji, like Lord Shiva came from Brahma.
Yeah.
Rudra appears from, yes. So 1 sec. You want to go? Okay, so we'll look at this quickly. So
Okay.
it's text 50 to 51. Lord Brahma, he's sad. He is wondering that, oh, in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. So he's so worried about that. And while he was contemplating, two other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. So in the purport, it says two bodies came out from the body of Brahma. One had a mustache and the other had swollen breasts. No one can explain the source of their manifestation. And therefore, until today, they are known as the Kayam or the body of Brahma, with no indication of their relationship as his son or daughter.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, this is a new one. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji, for asking. Yeah. Okay, so you want to also know about
Lord Shiva.
Shiva, Rudra's appearance. So as Lord Brahma, he tried to explain to his sons that, okay, you need to follow my orders. See, he says, my dear sons, now generate progeny. He asks them to have engage in creation. But due to their being attached to Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they aimed at liberation, and therefore they expressed their unwillingness. At that point, on the refusal of the sons to obey the order of their father, there was much anger generated in the mind of Brahma, which he tried to control and not express. Although he tried to curb his anger, it came out from between his eyebrows, and a child mixed blue and red was immediately generated. After his birth, he began to cry, O destiny maker, teacher of the universe, kindly designate my name and place. So Brahma, he pacified the boy and he says, do not cry, I shall certainly do as you desire. And he says, you shall be called by the name Rudra by all people because you have cried so anxiously. And I have selected the following places for your residence. And then, yeah, he says, you have 11 other names. Manu, Manu, Mahinasa, Mahan, Shiva, Ritadvaja, Ugrareta, Bhava, Kala, Vamadeva, and Dritavrita. And he also gives their 11 wives. So 11 Rudras and the 11 Rudranis are there mentioned here, Mataji.
Wow, nice, Mataji. That was really nice. Thank you, Mataji.
Sure, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Okay. Thank you so much. Shall we end? Thank you so much, Bharat Prabhu and Bhavana Mataji, for joining every single session.
Vinita has a question.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Mataji, please.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Very, very beautiful class, Mataji. Thank you so much for detailing explaining the pastime and also two different Manvantas, that Varaha appearance, how in one place there is no Hiranyakshas killing at all, and the other place there is a killing. It is very detailedly explained, Mataji. Swayambhuva does not have a Hiranyaksha, right? Chakshasu has a this one, Hiranyaksha comes up, where you put the picture where Varaha is fighting with Hiranyaksha. Clear understanding, that picture makes a clear understanding. Yeah, the other slide, yeah, 10th slide.
Yes,
The slide makes a very clear understanding. Yeah, very nice, Mataji. How Rudra has appeared, that is also very nice, because the 4 Kumaras were not progeny, doing the progeny that he needs. He wants to increase the population. So then he gets angry and Rudra appears. Very clear explanation, Mataji. Thank you so much for very detailed explanation. Mataji, why did Gajendra prayers came here? I didn't get that point.
Not Gajendra prayers, Mataji, like the pastimes of an elephant. That's why it is called Gajendra Leela.
Oh, okay. So why is that came? Why is that compared here?
They were comparing how the Lord appeared like an elephant, like that huge and that magnificent.
Oh, okay. Okay. His appearance look like that. Oh, okay, very nice. And also you said one more point, whatever form he's taking, but he's still supreme. And also the most important thing I like was you are telling that Varaha in this has the smell of it is more in good in smell. That's how it can easily catch out the earth. So it is taking that whatever the body the Lord has chosen, that that senses what is powerful in that body of the cell. That senses it's used and catch the earth, right? That was explanation was very clear. Thank you, Mataji. So detailed explanation. Very nice chapter. Thank you, Mataji.
In the chapter. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare
Mataji, one more question I have.
Yes.
All the sons of Brahma, as soon as they are appearing from him, they know about Lord Vishnu, or is Brahma telling about Lord Vishnu, like Lord Krishna?
Brahma instructs Narada Muni, that we hear. But do all the sons of Lord of Brahma know about this? I don't think so, because we see how Daksha also is a son of Prajapati. Daksha is also the son of Brahma. Yet he considers himself quite superior. Preeti will ask me, Mataji. I'm sorry, Mataji. Would you be able to answer it? You would be able to give a much better explanation.
Mataji, we don't read about a structured course where Brahma teaches his sons or something like that. Like, for example, the four Kumaras, they are directly described as jnanis. How they became jnanis, we don't know. Maybe Narad. I don't even know. I don't know. Yeah, so either they undergo a process of realization that is being imparted to them by Brahma, and they come to that process of self-realization, or yeah, that's the only thing. Maybe the process of self-realization is imparted to them. So, but the way we read the story in Bhagavatam and other places, it just appears everything is instantaneous. There is no big process that is being taught, or it doesn't speak much, Mataji. The Bhagavatam as such doesn't give much detail. So the rest of it is only speculation. Whatever I'm telling is just speculation.
Because from Brahma, we see how both good and bad appears, right? Dharma appears, adharma also appears from Brahma.
Yeah, so some people take up to the path of self-realization, some do not. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, somewhere from some source they are knowing about Lord, right, Mataji? Means somewhere they are getting, maybe both good and bad know what is Lord, but only the one who needs to realize, they are realizing, and the one who don't, they are becoming demons. Maybe somewhere they with some source they are getting that realization.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
Everybody with some skills. For example, Lord Brahma also creates all the sages. Now, the sages by nature, their duty mostly was to meditate, self-realization, and also create progeny. Many of these sages were there to create progeny as well. So definitely some process must have been imparted to them, right? But the exact details we don't know because it's not clearly mentioned.
Sure, Mataji. Sure. Thank you, Mataji.
Interesting question. We should directly ask Brahma this question.
Thank you, Mataji. I think, shall we end here, Mataji?
Yeah, sure. Thank you all so much for joining us. It was a very interesting session. We'll meet again with the next chapter. Mataji, do we know who the speaker is for the next chapter?
I have to check. I don't know who is the speaker.
Okay, Mataji. So we'll meet again next week because the story is going to be interesting. We are going to see the story of Varahadev.
Oh, it is Sundaranand Prabhu, right?
Oh, okay. So we are going to see the story of Varahadev. So it will get more and more interesting. Request everyone to join. We'll end here. Vancha Kalpataru
Mataji, next week Sundaranand Prabhu.
Vancha Kalpataru Vishcha Kripasindhu
Patitanaam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Grantraj Srimad Bahagvatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, all the assembled devotees ki jai. Thank you.
Do you want me to do it?
Sure.
Yay.
Hare Krishna. We'll end the call.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Krishna Hari Bol.